You're listening to the Labor Notes podcast, and boy, do we have an episode for you today.
It's our very own Danielle's birthday-sode. Happy birthday to the Queen of Whimsy. No one's doing it like you.
And you know what that means. She gets to be a tyrant and impose her iron will on this week's theme.
This is not a democracy. And to be clear by that, I mean that this was not my idea, and I am being celebrated in this episode against my will.
That's right. We did force Danielle to choose the theme of this episode, but only because we know how much she has her finger on the pulse of organizing and that she would never choose some delightfully random theme for the pod.
This week's episode is about soup. More specifically, why your favorite soup movie is an organizing movie, actually.
What constitutes a soup movie exactly? Would you care to elaborate?
Nope. Anyway, for my movie, I went with the 1996 hit The Birdcage. If you haven't seen it, it follows a gay couple, Armand and Albert Goldman, played by Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, whose lives are thrown for a loop when their son comes home from college and reveals that he wants to get married even though he's only 20 years old. And if that wasn't bad enough, they soon find themselves bracing for a visit from his fiancée and her parents, an extremely conservative senator and his wife, who themselves are trying to recover from a salacious scandal involving another politician. So Armand and the son Val use secret number 28 from our bestseller, Secrets of a Successful Organizer. They make a game plan.
I love a salacious scandal. I'm excited to hear how it plays out for them. For those listening at home, a good game plan has 3 components. First, what exactly do we want? That's our demand. Second, who has the power to fix the problem? That's our target or targets. And third, what tactics can work? Given our demand and targets, what actions would be effective in winning our demand? So, what was Armand and Val's game plan?
Well, their demand is essentially getting approval from Senator and Mrs. Keeley, who are played by Gene Hackman and Diane Wiest. Obviously, the people who had the power to grant that approval were the senator and his wife, and for their tactics, they decide to redecorate the house and pretend that Armand is straight by inviting Val's absentee mother to dinner. And also to send Albert away so that he doesn't ruin their plan just by being himself.
Aww. No, that's so heartless. How could they do that to the sweet and sensitive Albert?
I know, right? And the thing is, they didn't even include Albert in making the plan. So he ends up feeling totally blindsided and hurt and isn't actually at all bought in on it. Armand eventually has a one-on-one with Albert that gets him on board, but it's a messy situation and the initial plan ends up backfiring. And honestly, I think this is a challenge that we can really relate to as organizers. We come up with a game plan that seems so great to us, but then realize that our coworkers aren't with us or invested in the plan because we didn't invite them into figuring it out. And I feel like how you come up with your game plan can matter almost as much as what that game plan is. Anyway, just imagine a cut to Albert locking himself in the bedroom because he feels rejected and scared he's going to let everyone down.
Danielle, this is so sad, and there hasn't even been any soup yet.
Okay. Well, that brings us to secret number 33. Make sure every task gets done. It can be easy to come up with a game plan with a lot of great tactics, but then just totally forget to actually figure out and assign the tasks that need to get done to be able to pull those tactics off. For instance, while Armand and Val are pretty successful in transforming Armand's house from a fun and vibrant home into something that looks more like a monastery, there are a lot of details they forget to account for, like making sure everyone had their stories straight, no pun intended, ensuring Val's mom arrived on time to dinner, and also checking that their maid actually even knew how to cook.
Oh no, is this movie about a bad soup?
Yes, and it's called Sweet and Sour Peasant Soup.
I'm sorry, what is that?
I don't know, I made it up. At least that's what the maid says when Armand asks him the same question. What we do know about it is that it has both shrimp and egg in it.
Ugh. This sounds like a disaster.
Well, it nearly is, but then Albert actually shows up, dressed in drag as a sweet conservative lady from a small town, and pretends to be Val's mother and saves the day. He does such a good job in that role that he ends up being the only person Senator Keeley actually likes. And for me, this movie is a good reminder that if we focus on our coworkers' limitations or feel like they won't be able to pull off our plans, we're likely to exclude them from the process and then get frustrated when they don't just follow along with what we want. But if we work with them and develop the necessary relationships and trust, we can build a strong game plan with them and have the leverage and participation we need to win. And our coworkers may surprise us. Armand and Val thought they had all the answers, but it was actually Albert who provided the best solution and stayed cool under pressure. Anyway, at the end of the movie, Val learns to accept Armand and Albert and tells his future in-laws the truth. Then both families come together to sneak the Keeleys away from the paparazzi through the nightclub they own downstairs by disguising them as drag queens. And everyone lives happily ever after, or, I assume.
Danielle, those are some great organizing lessons, but some of these other parts of the movie, does this movie hold up?
Yeah, and where was Senator Keeley on January 6, 2021?
Well, it's kind of like the maid says when they ask him why he only made soup for dinner. Peasant soup is an entree. It's like stew.
What?
Natasha, what's your pick?
I went with American Psycho.
Wait, what? That's not a soup movie.
This is Dorothea?
Yes, dear. Courtney, you're gonna have the peanut butter soup with smoked duck and mashed squash. New York Matinee called it a playful but mysterious little dish. You'll love it. And then the red snapper with violets and pine nuts. I think that'll follow nicely.
Thanks, Patrick.
Sorry, got in on a technicality. I know, it's a stretch. But in my defense, I thought the film really effectively adapts lessons from my favorite book, Secrets of a Successful Organizer.
You need to be stopped, but also never stop. For folks who haven't seen the movie, can you give us a brief overview?
Absolutely. So the film stars Christian Bale, who plays Patrick Bateman, an investment banker who, shockingly, is also a complete sociopath.
Aren't they all?
But Bateman does an okay job of hiding it at first, at least to his yuppie friends. But really, that's just because his friends have never read their trusty copy of Secrets of a Successful Organizer, particularly Secret 9, 2 ears, 1 mouth.
That's the organizing golden rule that states you should spend a lot more time listening than talking. To put it plainly, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so at the very least, you should spend twice as much time listening as you do talking.
Which isn't always easy. Sometimes you're really excited to share a campaign update, or you've got information that others lack, like the fact that you killed your idiot friend for having a cooler business card than you. Whoa. But you're not going to win anyone over to your side if they don't feel listened to.
Yeah, like when Patrick Bateman is openly telling people he's got homicidal fantasies, or even that he has outright committed gruesome acts of violence and his lawyer just talks over him about his fancy trip to London, that is not bringing him closer to the center of the sociopath bullseye. Wait, actually, technically it is. This metaphor doesn't work at all.
Natasha, you did this to yourself. We told you this wasn't a soup movie.
I'm sorry. Anyway, that brings us to our next organizing lesson, Secret 38. Perception can trump reality.
After you fight it out with management, they will go to great pains to present their own version of what went down. The union was unreasonable, and they didn't even win so much, so don't even bother next time. It's really important that you're prepared to counter that narrative.
To quote Secrets, what people think happened is just as important as what actually happened.
Exactly. Like, it turns out you can just lie to your affair partner and tell her she's at Dorsia, the most exclusive restaurant in New York City, and she'll just totally buy it. Wait a second. Are these the right lessons?
Or you can just lie to your friends and pretend American Psycho is absolutely a movie about soup and also organizing. What are they going to do about it? But now that you mention it, there is that great scene where Bateman walks out of a cushy Manhattan apartment, dragging a body in a bag, and stuffs it into a trunk in front of his friends. But his rich idiot friends can't conceive of the idea that someone of their social status would ever do such a thing, so they just don't notice.
Yeah, people's perception of what went down really matters, and it's so important to emphasize what you won. Whether it's, we've got the boss to back down on cuts to our healthcare, or I taught my idiot rich friend not to get a cooler business card than me. Which brings me to my pick, Ratatouille, the 2007 Pixar mega hit that defined a generation of corny elder millennials just as much as The Office. This is my corny elder millennial reveal.
You've got to live your truth.
Thank you. And in fairness to Natasha's pick, Ratatouille is honestly not that much more about soup than American Psycho. But like we just talked about, perception matters. So what is Ratatouille about? Aiming for the bullseye, of course. If you've read Secrets of a Successful Organizer or come to our workshops, you know the bullseye is the labor notes visual that helps organizers figure out where their co-workers are in their support for their genius union. Whether you're in the bullseye like Linguini, the garbage boy, whose fortunes change when he sees through the sous chef's Remy-busting campaign, or girl boss Chef Colette, who moves closer to the bullseye as she truly embraces the spirit of Chef Gusteau's famous motto, anyone can cook or organize.
Wait, is this movie about soup, running a high-end restaurant in Paris, finding friends and a new career in a big city, making it as a woman/rat in a male/human-dominated field, or organizing?
Yes. A little plot synopsis. Remy and his human kitchen assistant, Linguini's intertwined fates change when they accidentally collaborate on a soup that turns out to be a hit. Side soup note, the recipe blogs have declared this to be a potato and leek soup, even though I don't think they ever said it in the movie. Anyway, despite their language and species boundaries, they find common cause in surviving the dangers of a Michelin service kitchen and in overcoming their foibles and fears to send out just a very good plate of food. But like all Pixar movies, it's about a deeper universal truth about what makes us human.
That we all have our own culinary song within us, and that when opportunity, courage, and true originality meet against the odds, it creates this beautiful, irrepressible symphony.
Yes, and also that we can all recognize existing networks and natural leaders in our workplace. In the 2016 Labor Notes article, So You Think Your Workplace is Disorganized? Adapted from Secrets, we learned that, quote, every workplace is organized in at least two ways: the way management has designed things and the way workers themselves organize. You should understand both, end quote. Remy couldn't have succeeded in his campaign to carry Chef Gusteau's torch if he hadn't learned how back of house was already organized. Not just where all the spices and herbs and condiments and creams are, but who to enlist or bring into the center of his campaign. Colette's station being so close to Linguini's, for instance, and their proximity on work tasks was as much a part of how she moved to the center of the bullseye as her ideological openness to a rat chef.
Sentences are being said here that have never been said before. But yeah, this piece, which we've linked in the episode description, talks about how much it matters to think about your workplace in terms of your coworkers' roles. Quote, different work groups will have different degrees of power on the job, depending on factors such as skill and whether they're in a position to bottleneck the flow of work. Certain jobs are ideally positioned to be nodes of communication. For instance, in a hospital, the cafeteria cashiers and the transporters who wheel patients around.
Yeah, and the piece also talks about social groups that you can identify by asking questions about little things you might not think of as being super important, like even, quote, who buys lottery tickets together? Who shares a running joke? Who goes out to the parking lot to smoke cigarettes? As the piece says, quote, social groups often form among people who have something in common. For instance, smokers, young workers, people who attend the same church, or people who speak the same language. Both work groups and social groups create connections among their members. You can draw on these connections to figure out strategies that unite your coworkers and use people's natural tendency to stick up for those close to them.
Yeah, and then the last thing is that it takes time, effort, and gradually ramping up from secretly making soup and then sweetbread à la gusto to, of course, the pièce de résistance, ratatouille, the simple but elegant titular vegetable dish that makes the formidable food critic in this movie weep as he regresses to his childhood self, transported by just a very good plate of food. In campaign escalations, just like with a good broth, you want to turn up the heat gradually.
Great. I feel like I understand a little more about organizing and a lot less about soup.
My job is done.
That's our episode. We want to hear your organizing questions, organizing movie recommendations, and soup recipes. Email us at podcast@labornotes.org. And please rate us or leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. If you're listening to us on Podbean at labornotespodcast.podbean.com, please download our episode. And don't forget to wish Danielle a happy birthday under your breath as you download the episode.
And don't miss our upcoming online workshops next week. Our next Stewards Workshop is on Monday, April 13th, on the topic of dealing with difficult supervisors. And we've got our contract campaign workshop series on Tuesdays, April 14th and 21st. Sign up for both of these workshops on labornotes.org/events.
The Labor Notes podcast is produced by Daniel Smith, Sindhu Sundar, and myself. Our title music was written and performed by our coworker, Keith Brower Brown. See you next week. Solidarity, y'all.